And then because Republicans have always controlled. No, actually, I'm gonna get some Coke too because I have been a thirsty little.
Yeah. Oh my God. We're keeping that.
Wait, who wants what?
Would
you like some?
Yeah, just put it right next to it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, ASMR.
Yeah, I think we think ASMR. We're on an ASMR podcast.
I was talking with Atticus about it, and like we should be a political like ASMR.
Yeah.
Like Democrats have taken both state legislatures and
ASMR.
People doing ASMR.
Yeah. Give the people what they want.
Oh my God.
Hello and welcome to the final episode of our first season of Political In-Queery. We're a podcast about queer issues as they pertain to local politics in Michigan. Political In-Queery is proudly put on by the Michigan Daily, which is an LGBTQ+ news publication at the University of Michigan Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Blake Bile, current senior at the University of Michigan studying political science and writing, and in today's episode, a majority of the podcast team will join together to talk about the results of the midterm elections, our favorite part of the season, and finally, we will be revealing a very special announcement, which you won't want to miss. Before we get started, I would just like to thank our staff members who were not able to make it for this episode. So thank you to Elena Mann and Atticus Spicer for your contributions on this season. Without further ado, please enjoy. Would everyone kind of want to do a little introduction of I don't know where we want to start, but pointing finger. Adara, you go first.
Okay. Hello, I am Adara Noble. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a freshman at the University of Michigan. I'm studying psychology, and I worked on the Jeremy Moss episode.
I can go next. I'm June. I use she, they. Let's see, I'm a freshman studying political science. And I worked on the Jeremy Moss episode.
Hello, I'm Jackie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a sophomore studying political science and Latina studies, and I worked on primarily the Jeremy Moss episode, but I also edited for all 3 episodes.
The Jeremy Moss get together.
Yeah, the Jeremy Moss episode was really fun. Yeah.
I think it's just like so many people worked on it. I think that's when the podcast started to like kind of pick up,
Yeah.
and then people started to like participate and everything.
It was a good conversation too. He's just like an amazing speaker.
Oh, yeah.
And just like really articulate. And he brought Tyra Harris Bolden. So awesome. I was sad when she lost.
Overall, I'm pretty happy with the elections, though.
Yeah, same.
That was the first one that I was able to vote in, and like it was.
Participate. Did you vote at
I voted by mail, so like
Okay.
I went home and I voted like 2 weeks early, I think.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I went back home to the boonies and voted in person because I didn't trust my Republican. Yeah.
That made me nervous too, because like I didn't know that they counted family votes differently until after I voted, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess before we continue, we should give out special shout outs to some of our staff members that couldn't be here. Elena, who has worked on I believe all 3 episodes. She's awesome. She is a freshman. I can't remember what she's studying.
I think engineering.
That sounds about right.
I think.
Something STEM.
Yeah.
She's in the stick. She's in the trenches.
Mm.
And then Atticus Spicer, our social media director and kind of graphics designer. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it today. But special shout out to them too. And I don't think you don't want to forget anyone. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. We have 4 of us here: Elena,
And
Atticus.
shout out to Kiera.
Yeah, shout out to
yeah.
Kiera.
Who
Hey.
is here.
I guess I'll start with my favorite part of the season. It was all really, really great, but I really enjoyed oh God. I really enjoyed my conversation with Jason Morgan, who is now the elected House representative for Ann Arbor's district. And he was one of the only people that we interviewed that sort of brought up trans representation and different sort of trans issues. So I really appreciated him kind of adding to that perspective. But also too, he talked about like the Ann Arbor community, which was nice to hear about. And he talked about a lot of things that I didn't really know about Ann Arbor. Particularly that like Ann Arbor doesn't have like a set budget or a set sort of community space for queer people. But he was really awesome, and he also grew up in like rural Michigan, and I related to that, and I think sort of the struggles that he sort of went to was really relatable.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of agree with you. I think like my favorite part was like listening to the podcast and like hearing more about Ann Arbor because like I am a freshman and like I just came to Ann Arbor a couple months ago and I did not know a lot about it. And I think that like listening to the podcast like helped me understand like a lot of like the social and political issues that are like in Ann Arbor that maybe weren't the same as like my hometown or anything like that.
Yeah.
Kind of on the other side of that, I really like talking to Jeremy Moss because he's from Southfields, which is pretty near where I'm from. And that sort of like super suburban perspective was really interesting, where you have to sort of navigate a lot of different social boundaries as a queer person. And he talks a lot about his experiences as like a openly gay like legislator. And that was just interesting to see the dynamic between like him and some of his colleagues. So and also we got Dairy Queen after that one. So
that was fun. That was my first time being to Affirmations. Had you been to Affirmations, Jackie?
I have not. It was very cool though, because it was just like a cute little space just for queer people. And you walked in at the little conference room, and Jeremy Moss walks in with Kyra Harris Bolden. We all got so excited. It was just really nice to talk to him. And he was so quotable. Like,
oh yeah,
if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yes.
Since that episode,
I have used that a couple times since.
It's so nice.
Yeah, I do remember him saying that.
I love taking the notes, just pulling out little like tidbits.
Yeah, he one thing that stuck out to me was when he was talking about when he first got elected to the Senate. There was another legislator, I can't remember the name of, but who ended up running again. And I talked about him with Lori the episode before, and she commented that during the campaign trail, during the race, this other man said I can't remember the name of, like his opponent, the Republican opponent, sent out mail listings to the entire district, basically accusing him of pedophilia. And like that was one thing that like I think really stuck with me, because up until the elections, that was like a Republican campaigning point, is like these pedophiles in schools are teaching kids queer, like gay sex, and like it's porn, kind of like you were talking about earlier, Jackie.
I wonder, he said something about well, he didn't talk a whole lot about trans issues, but he touched briefly on like why are there no trans people like who have run for office and like been like super successful so far. I wonder if it's because of that sort of dynamic. You know what I mean? I wonder if that's more persistent with that group.
Yeah, that would be. Jason Morgan actually talked about, also kind of sort of talked about that, how like, in districts that are really, really blue, like Ann Arbor or Detroit, where, potentially a trans candidate could get elected, why aren't we seeing more trans people running for state level politics and federal level politics? I think the answer, or a part of it, has to do with the Democratic Party.
That's true.
If the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, either which party, if you're trying to run as a Democrat or Republican, and you don't get the support of the party,
you're not going to win.
Resources out the door. Yeah. And so like, yes, probably definitely a cultural thing, but also the Democratic Party of Michigan needs to be better. Like,
Right.
like,
Just vote down the ticket, like whatever party they vote to, without like looking at any of the candidates or anything like that, which is like, I guess that's fine, but it's kind of like, I don't know, just because your party endorses somebody doesn't mean they're like the right thing. Like,
yeah.
And that goes for any party.
Well,
Yeah, there's still like a lot of biphobia in the Democratic Party, which Lori Pulaski kind of touched on in her episode. And it's like, you can't support one part of the community and say you support all of them.
Yeah.
When you're just
Right.
supporting like your ideal version of what you want a gay person to be like.
yeah. I remember her saying like even Democrats, after she had sort of got sort of separated or divorced with her ex-partner, Democrats, I remember her saying to me that Democrats came up to her and were like, oh, so like, but you're not really gay because you have a husband. And it's like,
It's always like the idea that, oh, once you have like a life partner, you're either straight or gay. You are no longer bisexual. And it's obviously fake.
Mhm.
It doesn't make sense, but people still believe it for some reason.
be better, Democrats. Damn it.
Everyone just be better.
Yeah.
Come on, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said for like trying to run the ideal gay candidate is such a problematic like ideal to even have.
Mhm.
But I will say I did recently see Pete Buttigieg when he came to campus, and if there was a guy for that like perfect, like gay Obama sort of thing,
Okay, Obama.
yeah, like trying to make that like super palatable, just the most Midwestern guy, like it's not really sustainable to just keep running the same like people like that.
Yeah. People just has, yeah, definitely been that candidate.
Yeah.
That like,
He's mid.
yeah.
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 Mid.
I don't know how to feel about people to judge because on one hand I want to like, yes,
Yeah.
like if anyone could win the presidency or could, get a higher position of office, it's him. But then also like, yeah, like June was saying, he's really palatable and really digestible for straight people.
Yeah.
And I've heard him talk about a few queer issues, and he's pretty moderate about it. He stands up for. I don't think he would compromise for whatever reason or back down. But like, yeah, maybe we should have more candidates that are not so heteronormative appearing.
Yeah.
Be better, be better Democrats. We'll get a candidate though. I mean, like, I was optimistic about the elections, but I was really happy with the results. This is the first time in 40 years that Democrats have held both state legislatures.
Right.
Like, and Big Whitmer is making national news. She is just killing it. But now that we have both state legislatures, like, stuff is just gonna get through.
Jeremy Moss serving as president pro tem
Yes.
of the Senate.
Yeah, did you see Lori is
Lori
also
also?
of the House? Like,
Mallory McMurrow's up there as
Yeah.
the whip.
mhm.
I think it's a good thing that
Yeah.
the elections went the way they did.
Yeah. Did anyone I mean, I would definitely consider our podcast like participating in flipping the house, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
even if
we
it's
did that.
small scale, but like, yes. Yeah, out canvassing, knocking doors. Yeah, but one thing I'm really excited for is I've been following sort of the history of a conversion therapy bill that was introduced in 2013 by Adam Zenke, who was Ann Arbor's House District representative. I'm just really looking forward to seeing that hopefully be passed because it's just been killed by Republicans. As the bill has gone on longer, it went from having like 2 Democratic co-sponsors in the House to having all 50 Democratic co-sponsors and a few Republicans. So like the bill is getting there. And like, I don't think I have to argue that conversion therapy is bad, but
Wait,
there's
so
science
like
about it.
talk about like the content of the bill. It's like a research interest of mine, conversion therapy stuff.
Yeah, well, so the content of the bill does not touch religious entities.
Right.
It specifically bans licensed therapists in the state. It adds to like, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like the American Therapist Counselor Association rules and regulation guidelines. It would add that like, if you are a licensed therapist, that goes against the rules and regulations. Like you can't do that. And it's
But you can't do conversion therapy?
yeah, but only licensed practitioners. Like I said, it doesn't touch churches and stuff, which is like
Yeah,
a bigger, yeah.
that's the thing. Like the bulk of it is like not only like churches, but then like that extends to like Christian like treatment centers and then Christian rehab and then Christian.
And there's like Christian, like what they call it, like where they go to the woods.
Yeah,
And they like
yeah, wilderness camps. Yeah,
like, or I'm sorry.
yeah.
Where are we one?
Yeah, we've been swearing this whole time.
Okay.
No, right.
Our audience swears.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of like all of those like teen retreats places too, like places where like you can just like send your kids off to go like.
Yeah, and the issue is so much of it goes across state lines too. So when you you can't really account for that.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
Because we can only control like what happens in the state.
Right.
But Michigan is purple, and I think for the blue states that are able to do it, it's great. But for the purple and red states that are able to do it, it's like even better. Yeah,
because that's where it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anyone is like really interested on like state by state sort of progress of conversion therapy bills, go to the Trevor Project. They have a really good graphic that is like bill introduced, bill passed, all that kind of stuff, and it really gives you perspective. Because I can't remember the numbers, but it's like only like I want to say like 15 states or something that have fully banned it. Which is insane.
Yeah.
That's not even like was it like
That's
barely a quarter.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I'm really excited for and hopefully really optimistic for. If Democrats don't get that through, I'm chaining myself to the steps of the Capitol building until they do get it through because that shit's ridiculous. But like, what is everyone else kind of excited to sort of hopefully see some progression in?
Honestly, okay, I feel like my issue of interest is a little more of like a I don't know, anecdote type of thing. But like this was the first election that I got to participate in, and I have been waiting to participate in an election since I was like 10 years old. I was just like really excited to like be 18 and like be able to vote. And like I registered like the second I got my driver's license, so I've been registered to vote since I was 16, even though I couldn't vote till I was 18. And like there was just something about checking the little yes box on Proposition 3 that like I don't know, that I was like, wow, I'm like politically active, I'm voting, I'm like an adult now. It was like crazy because it's like abortion has always been an issue that I really, really care about. Like I think every single person with a uterus has the right to choose what they want to do with their body. And that does include like choosing not to get an abortion, but you cannot decide for other people. And like I'm just really happy that it passed and that I got to like be part of that, I feel like.
Yeah.
Except it was very disheartening the next day to see the preacher on the diag, like with his 2 kids. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh, I saw that. But did you see the other group selling cookies for abortion rights?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
At the same time. But no, it was he brought his 2 kids and his wife. So first of all, those kids were not in school that day, and like I did not see them eat. And I tried to get them like a little granola bar because I felt just terrible for these kids who were not eating. They couldn't go to school. They were like stuck on the fucking like diag, like with a bunch of high school or I mean college kids who probably like I don't know,
Yeah,
so I
just
tried
staying
to,
with
yeah,
parents.
so I had this little granola bar. I was gonna like try to give it to the kids, and I was like, get away from my kids, you gay person, like whatever. And I'm like, yeah, and like I was pretty vividly clear, like.
Did they say that to you?
The
Get away
mom
from
did,
my.
yeah, and then she like took her kids away like after that because it was like right after I got out of my math class, and like me and my friends were just like feeling bad for those poor kids who would live in a house where like they probably also are probably homeschooled. Like let's be real, like
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah. But it was just like, anyways, voting yes on Proposition 3, very good experience for me.
Yeah. More people should be politically active.
Yeah,
More
because it feels
people,
good. It's rewarding, and like,
Mhm.
well, unless you
It
know
can
where you
be.
voted, yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
It can
It's
be.
stressful.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's also hard because you need the time, resources, and money to participate in
Not everybody can get
politics.
the day off of work. Not everybody can get the polls. Like,
Yeah.
It's stressful
It's-
because it directly impacts like us specifically, and other people can just like afford to not care,
Mhm.
and we can't anymore.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
we have to care, otherwise we're directly impacted.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear about the lines on election day?
I saw.
Yeah.
And at the Duderstadt Center too.
Mm.
I know like they requested people to bring blankets and like food and stuff like that. So I walked down and like brought a blanket for like people because it was just cold that night. and,
Yeah.
like, stayed and entertained like my friends who were voting because I just like wanted them to vote, you know?
Yeah. Everyone on this campus should be really proud.
Yeah, we
about
really like all came out
what we
for it.
did,
Like
yeah.
shout out to the election.
What was surprising to me is that like if you vote using your home address and you go to campus, then you have to wait in that huge line. But if you actually vote in the city of Ann Arbor, like there is no line and there's like a bajillion volunteers and they get you like right through. So I almost feel like it's a lot of like not really wanting the student vote. You know what I mean? There's so much disenfranchisement going on there.
And the fact that we all had class on election day. like,
Yeah,
all day
right?
long, no break. no-
I know a lot of professors did cancel class, so like I don't know about all of them, but
Really?
Really?
like
Like,
friends whose
Mandated.
classes got canceled or who emailed their professor and were like, hey, like I'm not coming in because I'm voting, and they were like, oh, we totally understand. And that's the thing too. I feel like Ann Arbor being like a more liberal place, like I don't know. I think that Ann Arbor is doing better than like at least at home. Like when I went back to Grand Rapids, like it wasn't nearly as encouraged to vote or anything like that. And that's
Right.
why I chose to vote at home because I just thought like Ann Arbor doesn't need my vote as much as Grand Rapids does. And like we're having like elections for like school board people and stuff like that. And like, you know, my sister's still in high school and like I just wanted her to get like a better education that's not gonna be, you know, written over by don't say gay bills and stuff like that.
Mm.
So,
yeah.
I felt very similarly.
yeah. And I
Like-
think I think it's very important to think about like where you're voting to and like where like what place like needs your vote the most.
Yeah. Yeah. Big Jack, would you like would you your issue of interest I think segues us into a very special announcement.
Take a moment to talk about queer representation in schools.
Yay.
So basically, in the media, we've all heard the infamous Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. But basically, there has been a new bill introduced by Louisiana's Mike Johnson, and it's a national version, so it would affect everybody. And it has the very misleading title of Stop the Sexualization of Children Act, which he claims it's common sense in that these schools are immersing children in like sexual imagery just because gay issues are brought up or just because a kid wants to explore their own identity, but essentially it relates LGBT community to pornography. It kind of perpetuates this rhetoric that gay people are inherently more sexual, and it's a lot to digest. So basically with the success of this midterm election, I'm kind of hopeful that at least it won't pass in Michigan, but obviously it's something to be aware of and to keep talking about so it doesn't pass nationally, because that would be devastating for a lot of LGBT youth, especially in schools and federally funded institutions.
Have y'all sort of been keeping up on the Dearborn?
The school board politics?
Yeah.
So I know there was an incident like a little while ago, but I think like the bigger thing that I'm hearing from like Detroit news and everything is like the larger trend where there's kind of heightened police presence at all the meetings and even like the county, and especially where I live in like North Oakland, North Macomb sort of area. It's like they have to make all sorts of like safety announcements before each thing, and just the pressure is turned way up over like things like, how many trans kids are really playing sports, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's just such a so much anger over really not that much substance. It just goes to show like how divided we are and everything.
Yeah, I remember, I think Lori was talking about that, like, oh yeah, there's a big fuss about like trans kids in sports, and it's like such a small number
Yeah,
that like,
these people existing are really not going to indoctrinate anybody.
yeah,
And like if you look at like people like I think this was a big thing in like Olympics and like national sporting too. And I saw somebody had posted this like counter argument to it where it's like, look at how many trans people are actually winning these events. Like it's like it's first of all such a small percentage of like the people participating are trans, which like obviously like we should change and everything. But it's like it's not really affecting people as much as they're making it seem. It seems like they're making it out to be like an issue that they like a platform, I guess, to like spread their bigotry.
like
Yeah.
the stereotype that like, oh, men are going into women's
Yeah.
sports and dominating.
It's that same
Or,
thing.
like,
They'd say like, oh, like we don't want men walking into women's bathrooms and like preying on women, but it's like they're not men. Like
mhm.
I think that's something that like a lot of the people who are arguing those things don't understand. Is it's like
Yeah, you look at how often that actually happens and it just doesn't
and it
match
just,
up.
yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, that segues us into our next season. Oh my god! Not to lighten the mood, but next season we are going to be talking with GSAs and about queer representation in schools. So if you are currently listening and you are a high school student and or a college student that's a part of a queer organization, please reach out and DM us. Our social medias are In-Queery Pod. That's INQUEERYPOD. We'd love to interview you and hear some of your questions because, like we were just talking about, that is a huge issue that queer and trans youth are facing. And there are so many battles to be had, but that is a huge battle. I think as queer and trans people, we need to have more representation, and any attack on our ability to sort of get ourselves more out there and get more exposure, that needs to be addressed, because that's what we really need is more exposure and more representation. I think one of the things that Lori Pohetsky said is there are not more queer people than there were in the past. There is more representation and more exposure. And that's why people are being afraid. No one's indoctrinating anyone.
Right.
No one. People just
don't feel as afraid to like explore these things earlier in their life.
Yeah.
But yeah, also reach out with like any questions. If you don't necessarily want to be interviewed, you want to be like kept anonymous, like say that too. Like we would love to just like send a little love to the younger generations who are struggling with their sexuality.
Yeah.
Or not struggling. If you have like success stories, share that too.
Yes, we would love to hear.
We would love to hear some positive news.
Yeah.
College kids.
Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this
episode.
I know that I had a lot of fun with all of you all.
Yeah, we definitely need to do more host episodes.
Yeah, this was fun. This was really fun. Well, thank you again. Share with your friends and family.
Send us questions.
Send
Send us stories.
questions. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Well, that wraps up our season finale of Political Inquiry. Tune in sometime mid-December to hear our conversation and interview with current Attorney General Dana Nessel. Until then, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow us on our social medias and share us with your friends and family. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at In-Queery Pod. That's INQUEERYPOD. Thank you again for tuning in. It was a great season. And thank you again for everyone who's contributed to this season. It was a blast working with you all. Until we see you next time, take care.